Hey guys, in this video we're going to be tackling the law of cosines, and in particular we're going to do one specific type of law of cosines, and that is when we're given a triangle and we know a side, angle, side. So like let's say for instance this is 10, maybe we know this angle is 80 degrees, and then we know this side over here is 12, like that. So we have a side here, we got an angle, and we got a side. So this would be impossible to do with our knowledge of the law of sines from the last couple days. We wouldn't have a ratio that we could even start with because for the law of sines we need that pair. This we cannot get a pair. We're not given a pair, and there's no way to get a pair. So we gotta kind of go to the next best option, which is a little bit longer, but not necessarily that much more difficult, just a little bit longer. And that is called the law of cosines. So here's what the law of cosines looks like. It looks kind of confusing. There's a bunch of letters, and there's generally a few different iterations you'll see of it. And we're going to use different letters in this delta math because they're not in A's, B's, and C's, but it'll all work out fine. Promise here. So this is what the law of cosines looks like. It's like this: a squared equals little b squared plus little c squared minus 2 little b little c cosine of big A. So that's our first law of cosines. Another way that you can write the same law would be little b squared equals little a squared plus little c squared minus 2 little a little c cosine of big B. And the third way we could write this is little c squared equals little a squared, and you might be able to start filling in this pattern, plus little b squared minus 2 little a little b cosine of, you guessed it, big C. So this is generally what you would see if you, like for instance, Googled the law of cosines. You would probably see these three big equations. So these, as you know, represent this ABC triangle we've been talking about with the little letters opposite of the big letters. So generally it works like this. So how do you know which equation to pick? Well, generally you just choose whatever equation. For instance, if we were looking for little a, we would choose this equation. Or if we were looking for big A, we would choose this equation. If we're looking for little b or a big B, we're going to choose the second one. And little c or big C, we were going to choose the third one. And you can see this pattern that develops here. The little a squared is equal to the other two sides squared and added together minus 2 times the other two sides times the cosine of the big letter, which we're trying to find there. And this pattern continues. For the second one, we got little b squared. So then we're going to be squaring and adding the other two sides, minus 2 times the other two sides times the cosine of the big B. So you can see this pattern. So the A's, B's, and C's aren't really so much important, but the pattern of what's happening here is what is important. Because in all of these questions, we're going to be given, whether they're L's, M's, N's, or DEFs, and the like, we're going to be given those. And we're going to be asked to find, like for instance, this is one we're asked to find a little L. So then we're going to start with little L squared is going to be our sort of starting spot. So here's what it's going to look like. We're going to have a little L squared equals, and now we're given the other two sides here. We're given M and N. So those are going to be like our B and C, if you will. So we're going to do 390 squared plus 430 squared minus 2, it'll always be minus 2. And then we're going to do parenthesis because we're multiplying. 390, close parenthesis, another parenthesis, 430, close parenthesis. And then the cosine, and notice this angle, big L, matches the little l that we're given. So the cosine of 134. All right, so while it looks confusing, there's a lot going on. That's actually it. What we're going to do is plug this whole side over here into our calculator in one big line. So we're going to have L squared, and we're going to type that in just as I have it written there. You don't need any extra parentheses or anything. You're just going to type it in exactly how as I have it written. So 390 squared plus 430 squared minus 2 parenthesis 390 close parenthesis, another parenthesis 430 close your parenthesis, cosine 134. Type it in just like that and close your parenthesis and that cosine and hit enter. And you're going to get some massive number here, 5699888.4175. Right. And that's equivalent to L squared. Now we're not asked to find just L squared, we're asked to find L. So how do we find that? Well, we take the square root. So we'll take the square root of both sides. If you've got one of the graphing calculators, there's a little trick. What you can do is you can hit the second square root. So hit square root. And then if you hit second, and then down at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see like the little minus sign down there. It says in blue, it says A and S. If you hit second and that, it'll actually plug in your previous answer. So you don't have to retype that whole thing. If you want to do that little shortcut, you can do the second A and S. You're welcome to do that. And it will plug your previous answer in there for you. Or you can just retype it. It doesn't matter. And there we get an answer of L equals 754. We're asked to find the length to the nearest centimeter. So that means we're going to round actually to the nearest whole number. We've got 754.97. So the nearest whole number is going to round up to 755. And it seems kind of reasonable because this angle that it's opposite of is 134, which is a really big angle for a triangle. And this is significantly bigger than our other two sides. So it seems like a reasonable answer. And there we go. So I'm going to do a couple more problems here. All right, in this example, we've got DEF. We're going to be doing the same. I'll write it out again. I'll just do the first formula this time. A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of big A. But of course, we're not doing A's, B's, and C's. We're given some exclusive information here. We're going to find little f. So this is going to be little f squared equals, and we take our other two sides, D and E, so that's going to be 36 squared plus 97 squared minus 2 times 36 times 97 times the cosine of, always make sure it matches, those are big, both f's, cosine of 166, we're on a little bit of space there, 166, it says. So I'm going to type all of that in my calculator, just as it is written. Don't need any extra parentheses or anything. I'm just going to do 36 squared plus 97 squared minus 2 parentheses 36 parentheses 97 cosine of 166. And again, we get a pretty big number, 17481.54. And to find that, we're going to take the square root. So I'm going to do that second square root and then the A and S again. And I get f to be 132. It says nearest inch, so it's just going to be rounded to 132 because it's 0.21. And we will type that in. Boom, there we go. All right, let's look at one more. I'll draw a little picture for this one. Might help you visualize it a little bit. So it says we're given M and O. So if I were to draw this M and O, it says little n here is 85, little o is 10, and angle M is 56 degrees. So you can see they have this side angle side, which is what we're doing here. And we're going to find little m over here. So we're going to use that formula I've been using. We're going to start with m squared equals the other two sides squared and added together. So 10 squared plus 85 squared minus 2 times 10 times 85 times the cosine of the angle that matches. We have m's for both, cosine of 56. And we will type that directly into the calculator as it's written. 10 squared plus 85 squared minus 2 parentheses 10. Just don't forget those parentheses. Parentheses 85. Cosine of 56. Close your parentheses on that. and we get m squared. Also, don't forget to take your square root of this when you're done. That is m squared, so we need to square root it. It says we want the nearest inch, so I'm going to do second square root and then second ANS, so I don't have to retype it. And I get m equals 79.8, so actually we want to do 80. 80 inches would be the nearest. Seems relatively on par with this other one. So let's go with it. And there we have it. So all of these problems that you're going to be asked to do today are going to be just this side angle side version. There is one other type of law of cosines which we'll tackle tomorrow, and that's going to be if we're given all three sides. So if you're given a side, side, side is another scenario. Just like with the law of sines, we had like those two different cases. The other case where we could do law of cosines, where we'd have to do it, would be side, side, side. Today will all be these side angle sides. So set it up the same way. As long as you follow step by step, plug it in your calculator exactly as it's written, you shouldn't have much of a problem with this, and I hope you can get this done before you leave today. So good luck on that.